everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Francis and Nate. We're in that awkward time period where England and America has wonky times, wonkier than normal, because you guys changed time and we haven't yet.
That's correct.
The most dreaded time that I have of every fucking year is the fall back, when everything gets dark and cold and angry, and you get to wander around and be like, why shouldn't I just anyway. Nate, how are things? So you guys are going to be getting into the long dark. I think we just had our first frost this overnight. I didn't get a chance to really crunch around in it, but
we didn't, as far as I'm aware of, have a frost last night. But yeah, it was like pretty close to freezing this morning when I rode in. I definitely broke out the cold weather gear for the first time of the year, or at least first time since the summer. And rode in, got to experience the scrum peloton of cycle commuters around 7:30 a.m. Wild. There's always one dude who's just like full on, I'm like qualifying for the Tour de France, crazy, just screaming at people left and right. So that I got to experience that this morning, but it's good. Yeah, everything's all right.
Is bike traffic in England like just as bad as regular traffic in England?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to get around. Like stuff that would take you forever in a car or on public transit does not take you as long on a bike, both because you just aren't stuck in traffic as much and because like there are some easier routes to get through. To put into perspective, I live about 15 if you're walking normal, 10 if you're walking fast minute walk from the nearest train station. It's not like a subway, it's overground is what they call it. It's like a commuter rail. A relatively new system in London. Like, I think it's been open for like 15, maybe 20 years. And it takes me, like I said, so about 10, 15 minute walk away from the train, about a 15 to 20 minute train ride to the nearest overground station, and then about a 15 minute bus ride from there to the current studio. So that would be hustling up like 40 to 45 minutes of a commute. Whereas on my bike, the slowest it's ever gone in bad traffic was 28 minutes. And not too long ago, coming home one night where it's mostly downhill when traffic was light, I think I made it home in like 23, 24 minutes. So obviously like the bike is just massively more convenient for me. But I would say when you're cycling at peak times, you just kind of can't do the shit you can do when you're just on your own, because you can just like zigzag around and do all sorts of things. But like, there are so many more cyclists on the road that I've just found that sometimes you have to just like move in a pack. And I mean, like I said, there's I got to be at New York. I've gotten to be a New Yorker a couple of times this week of people trying to get attitude with me while I'm out on my bike, just responding appropriately. But today
they hear your American accent. It's like, shit, he might have a gun.
Well, no, today there was a woman who was going kind of slow, and I went around her and I was trying to be courteous and give her a little bit of space. And the angry guy in Lycra, who was storming past everyone, screamed at me for not getting out of the way fast enough. And he was like, you need to use the green lights to get ahead. And I was just like, oh, cool, man, suck your own dick. And I was very happy. I was very proud of myself that just immediately fucking came right out. Because like I said, just being, there's a certain attitude that I appreciate about New York that doesn't exist here. And that is and I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair to English people in general. Like, it's entirely possible that it's just your brain picking things out and saying this is the default when it's really just a couple of instances. But I think that there's a tendency here to very passive aggressively, assume you can get away with just giving someone unsolicited advice to be a dick. That's like their way of being dicks, is just to be like, oh, you can blah, 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 or did you know this, or blah, blah, or are you sure you're doing this right? Or just something along those lines. Like, and you're just supposed to just if you're in the wrong or whatever, like, or if if you're not the aggressor in the situation, like the default thing is just to like be angry but say nothing. And I just refuse to play that game.
That's not a game to play. No, like if somebody's you got to tell somebody to suck their own dick sometimes.
Well, that happened to me one time when I was running. That this guy, I was really kicking it in at the end, trying to get like a best time, not lifetime best time, but like best time since I started running seriously again. And a guy on a bike, this is on a pedestrian path. A guy on a bike got mad at me for not giving him enough room and tried to like give me a little smug quip about like, we need to share the road. And I was just like, go fuck yourself. Just completely unloaded on this guy. And he looked at me like, he looked at me like he had shown up to my door with a cake and I'd hit it with a hammer. Like, just could not process what was going on.
You're not supposed to yell back at me.
I don't go around looking for opportunities for this to happen, but in the last 6 weeks, like just being out, running, cycling, etc., I've had this happen quite a bit. And I do find it very funny because, like you said, like people just assume you're not supposed to say it. Like, I guess that's the rule. Like the rule is like someone can be a dick to you and you're supposed to just be like, oh, whatever, you know, and then go home and drink until you black out or build a model train. I don't know what you're supposed to do, but I'm just like, no, man, like, listen, I'm not one of these people who's like, Britain should be more like America, but I'm American. Like, I moved here when I was 33. Like, I'm not going to change. So folks want to try to do passive aggressive shit with me. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And it's just like, most people don't. But there's a certain type of guy who loves to do that. And British listeners know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the smarmy, like you said, is just like, I'm in the right and you're in the wrong, and you have to, and that happens in America too. And it's really like, it is very the correct kind of person, the New Yorker kind of person. I've never really run into this, not anytime soon. I have often told people if they've ever considered going fucking themselves. But yeah, you know, sometimes even when you're in the wrong, you don't have to be a dick about it, man. You don't have to yell, we got to share the road while you're blasting by me and you're fucking with your little squirt bottle of water, motherfucker. I will lob a brick at your head.
And that's the thing too, is like in the case of the when I was running, the guy absolutely was in the wrong, because it doesn't matter if pedestrians aren't necessarily sharing the road. Pedestrians have right of way on a shared path. Like, that's the rules. And if you're going to be a stickler about the rules, then you must know deep down, like the rule book says, you always yield to pedestrians. And then with the middle-aged man in Lycra guy, it's rush hour and people are cycle commuting. Like, bro, what the fuck is your problem? Like, that's just a guy being a dick. Yeah.
You know what that is? Normally when you're in a car and you say that, the other person doesn't hear it. So you can road rage all you want inside of a car and yell whatever you want and nobody hears it other than the people in the car. Yeah. When you're in a bike though, you got to watch out because somebody might hear that and then come at you with a lead pipe.
It's also really funny too, because this is just something that I've noticed recently, is that people don't seem to understand the concept that like there is such a thing as right of way. And like, I might be on a bike and thus smaller, but like if you are turning and I'm going straight and we both have a green light, I have the fucking right of way. Now, obviously, like I can't push it super hard, because if someone decides they're just going to go, like, you know, if we collide, they get a slight inconvenience and I die. So, you know, you got to be wily about it. You got to be paying attention all the time and expect people to be stupid, expect people to not look. But yeah, like I got to use my New York voice last night when a guy decided he wasn't going to look or yield when pulling out of an intersection where it's clearly marked. Because in Britain, in a lot of cases in America where you'd have a yield sign, they just have like markings on the street that tell you like you need to give way, like you have to yield. And so this guy just blew right past one, and then I was going, and I sort of anticipated he would stop because like he has to stop. And then he got mad and honked at me, and I was just fucking unloaded. And I was just like, I'm not yet at the point of like physically confronting people, but the thought had crossed my mind, if it comes down to it, that I have my my bike lock in my front pouch of my backpack, and it's just like, bro, this bike lock is very heavy and metal, and your windshield is glass.
All right,
like if it comes down to it.
$6,000 Patreon level to buy Nate a stab-proof vest, just in case. Just in case.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. If you get mad at me and you get out of your car to try to fight, I can get on my bike and get away, and you won't catch me.
All I have to do is go between these bollards, bitch. Now what?
Yeah, exactly. Find some bollards, sneak away. What the fuck are you going to do about it? I will say the other day, similarly, a guy decided to just flip a U-turn in the middle of traffic, and I couldn't figure out where he was going, if he was going forward. Like, he seemed to be stopped, and I thought he was letting me pass. So I went around, and then he honked at me, and he was driving a van that was completely marked up in branding, like signage for a company that makes oat milk. And so he honked at me. So I just fucking turned around on my bike, like looked right back and flipped him off. And I was like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Like, sorry, man. Like, you're flipping a U-turn in the middle of traffic, middle of a busy road. And it was very nice to then just sneak up to the next intersection and cut through and then go behind where our building is to park and be like, yep, got away with it. Deal with it, oat milk van. Come find me. Try and find me.
Go deliver your oat milk man.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks because it's a brand of oat milk that I actually like, but, you know, fucking.
Well, you can still buy it. That guy was kind of a dick in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's the thing.
Exactly.
These moments are fleeting. There's no reason to be like, and that's why I will never drink that oat milk again. No, your anger is between you and that guy may have just been having a bad day too, and it's okay. You can just flip him off and tell him to go fuck himself.
I love the idea like that. This is a sentence that I have to say out loud because it's recounting a true event in my own life when I say beefing with the oat milk van driver.
At least it's not beefing with the Impossible Foods truck driver. Then it would be a perfect amount of irony.
But then it's also like, okay, well, I guess I have to find another brand of oat milk then, because if I can't buy this one, then I can't buy Oatly either because it's owned by BlackRock. Then it's just like, well, what do you do?
There's no...
Oatly has the most annoying ad campaign in human history. Like their ad copy was designed to make you want to commit a mass killing. So like I could never, I just, unless I'm forced to because it's the only brand on sale, just can't do it. You know what? That's my right as a consumer. I can either buy the brand of oat milk owned by like a multi-trillion-dollar VC or whatever the fuck you call it, like private equity company, or I can buy the oat milk made in London whose van driver tried to kill me. And there really aren't any other brands.
I respect the guy who tries to kill me personally more than the company, because like to BlackRock I'm nobody, but to that guy you pissed him off. Like that guy,
exactly.
He's not going to remember you a year from now, but he's going to remember you the rest of that day at least.
Exactly, and I at least exist to him. I exist. I'm real. I'm valid. You can't gaslight me and say I don't exist. I cut in front of your van because I thought you were giving me way, and I flipped you off. So I do exist, and I'm real, and I'm valid.
And I am going to drink your oat milk.
Yes, I think I have like a case of it at home.
I drink rice milk, so I don't know.
Rice milk's pretty good. It's pretty sweet, but it's good. I'm just fucking lactose intolerant, man. It sucks.
Oh god.
Like if I have a pizza, like I want to curl up and fucking live in a cave while my stomach turns itself inside out.
Thankfully, I am like I can't drink milk. I sip milk, and my stomach turns into a singularity and tries to collapse on itself. But everything else, cheese, yogurt, stuff like that, I'm still good on. So I'm still
I'm okay. Cheese is not great, but I can do okay in small doses with other solid dairy stuff. But yeah, man, one time I got coffee here at the studio, like the new place, while I was like, I just ordered it from a place that was like, I was ordering like a bagel. And the coffee, I think I said non-dairy milk or I said black, but it came with milk. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to drink it anyway. Regretted that decision greatly. Definitely do not do that.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll give to Starbucks is at least they make you pour your own dairy and label everything so that it doesn't get fucked up. Because I'm a black coffee drinker. I don't put anything into my coffee at all, unless I'm doing iced coffee. Then it's rice milk. But otherwise,
I have a fancy espresso machine. I make fancy espressos for fancy lads. But I just use oat milk.
This is what you're doing with all that Patreon money, huh? Is this the future Patreon money?
I mean,
is it in a place where everybody gets to enjoy it?
No, it's at home. It's mine. It's not this. There is going to be one for the studio that is an old one.
That's what I was getting at. Like, do you have like a whole studio one that I'm missing out on? I got to move to England so I can really enjoy the accoutrements of having an office attached to a podcast. It sounds very nice. I'm just very jealous, is what I'm saying.
We have an little Nespresso machine, like a pod Nespresso thing, and then eventually, when we can get a little convoy going of me moving stuff up from South London from my place to the studio, because I really don't want to ride this thing in my bike. I have like a DeLonghi kind of cheap one, like not cheap, but like not high end by any means. Just sort of like espresso maker thing. And that was one me and Cynthia had for years. And then I saved up money over the course of the first and second lockdowns. And I said, fuck it, I'm going to buy myself like a nice espresso maker. Like not like insane nice, because that would just be too big. I don't need something that big. But I got like a very nice single boiler one from a German company. And
I don't get it with espresso. It's just a tiny coffee, right?
Yeah, but you can make an Americano or you can make an espresso, and then when you foam up milk and put it in, like it's great.
That sounds way too complicated. It's just too much to that. Like I'd get an espresso if it's like a salad. If somebody else is making it for me, I'm into it. But like if I got to go down and bring up like 7 ingredients and put it in a bowl,
I've got a pour over. I've got a pour over thing sense. Too. Like, and that's just like if Cynthia and I want to have regular coffee, we just make regular coffee. I use a French press myself. So I bought Hussein uses a French press, or he did in the old studio. I used one years and years ago, but I got into drip, like to pour over drip coffee, and that I don't know, it works for me. Like, I'm one of these people, I don't know how to describe this. I understand that any coffee is better than no coffee. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like,
I'll take some Folgers freeze dried if there's nothing else around.
I grew up in fucking Indianapolis. I am used to like the black sludge in the horrible fucking gas station coffee pot. Like, I used to Steak and Shake being good. Like, Steak and Shake coffee being better than by comparison. Like, I remember when Starbucks first came around and people were like, wow, this is so good. Now you taste Starbucks brewed coffee, so it's like, shit. Like, I'm okay with whatever because I know what it's like to not have coffee at all and have horrible caffeine withdrawal. But if I have the choice, if I can pick for myself, well, yeah, I like good stuff. Great. But like, hit me with Dunkin' Donuts. I don't give a fuck. Hit me with, like Wild Bean Cafe from a fucking BP station. I don't care. That's fine. It's fine. Like, anything's fine. It'll be okay. Hopefully it's not burned. If it is burned, put a lot of dairy alternate in it. But like, I'm okay with it. So I'm not like, if you're like a connoisseur or something like that, like I'm not fixated on the idea that I can only have good coffee, because quite frankly, like, that's insane. Like,
well, you know what it is? It's people being really fancy with their addictions, which I get. Like, people who just like, I only drink, the finest of craft beers, or I make very fancy espressos, or I smoke this weed that is like, $500 per half ounce because
I only shoot artisanal fentanyl. It has to be made. It can't be made in a chemical lab. It has to be made like in somebody's craft brewery for fentanyl.
It's got to come from a specific area. It's got to come from the fentanyl area of Indiana for it to be proper fentanyl. It's just a fan, like you said. Like, I drink nice. I pay money for good coffee. Some locally made stuff by a couple of guys. They have a little shop here in the really hipster kind of district, and it's nice. But you know what? I have also been in field operations drinking stale Folgers, because if I don't, my day is going to be worse, because I'm addicted to caffeine. And I know that like, if I don't do anything, I'm going to be fucked by like 11.
After having experienced being in Ranger School, and there's like one or two people in the what's it called, in the platoon or the squad who doesn't drink coffee. And so like, if they get, not every MRE had coffee packets back then. And so like, you just collect up the ones that you could, and people who didn't drink coffee would give them to you. Like, you didn't have time to heat water. You weren't going to use your water heater, MRE heater for water anyway, because you needed it for fucking food. If you did have time. Oftentimes in Ranger School, like during training, we would get exactly 10 minutes to eat an entire MRE.
Oh yeah.
Not easy to do.
No. that is some dense
so for
food.
Me, my caffeine intake was fucking throwing Folgers packets in my lip like they were chew.
Mm-hmm.
So having done that, or if you ever heard of the Ranger cookie, which is take the non-dairy creamer, the sugar, and the coffee mix, and pour them all into one of the envelopes, and then take the matchbook from the MRE treats and light it on the foil packet and bake it together. Now, I've never had this be good, but some people really like it. I'm dead serious. Make like a coffee thing, biscuit, and then just fucking put it together. Like, with that being my method of consuming coffee, like, bro, a gas station that's a 5-star hotel.
The Army is really like, it does give you the space to be absolutely disgusting in some of the most ingenious ways. Like at no point in time, like even in, the post-revolution, Civil War, whatever, is anybody ever like crushing these things together and to make a cookie inside of a foil packet. Like, that's just not a thing that happens outside of like some really ingenious soldier 15 years ago in Afghanistan saying, I bet I've watched enough Anthony Bourdain. I think I could figure this out. And not actually figuring it out, but everybody else keeps doing it for some reason, because technically it's not going to kill you. There's nothing raw in there. And at the end of it, after you gulp it all down, you're going to have a shitload of energy for the next 15 to 20 minutes before you crash anyway, which is what you're going for. The whole baking thing seems a little like, we just made Ranger pudding, which is, the the chocolate powder, pour pour the coffee grounds in it, add a little bit of water until it's a pudding consistency, and then just eat that. But you guys, like, the combat arms guys just always have the most ingenious shit. And even one of, like, I'm surprised nobody's invented like a solar oven that they can pop on their back so they can, cook a whole chicken while they're up on an OP over the next 4 to 6 hours or so.
I mean, I'll tell this one quick story, and maybe I've told it before, so apologies if I'm.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Never apologize. Never apologize, Nate.
But to me, like, I try to keep it in perspective that as long as I'm able to get something, nothing could be as bad as, say, being forbidden to eat in Ranger School and being so fucking calorie deprived that when we did a short halt and the instructors weren't looking, I said, "All right, I'm using my knife to cut into this MRE in my rucksack, and the first thing I take out, I'm taking one thing, whatever it is I'm taking, and I'm going to eat it immediately just to have something while I have time." And so I did that, and I pulled out a thing of A1 steak sauce, and I fucking drank it like it was wine. Just pounded that shit. Just oh my God, dude. It was great. It was really salty. I needed some salt. But like, God damn. After that, I mean, like, all right, keep it in perspective. It doesn't mean I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean I don't like feel whatever, feelings and so on and so forth. But it is useful if I'm being a baby to remind myself how much worse it could be. And either the first strike rations in Afghanistan, like literally the same meal over and over and over again, nonstop, and it sucks. Or A1 steak sauce banquet in fucking Ranger School, like one of those two things. I remind myself it could be worse. Similar with coffee. Like at least I'm not dipping instant coffee packets, which I genuinely did anymore. Yeah.
Right. Hey, look, like I said, it's a fantastic chance to be absolutely disgusting in ways that you never knew possible. Like, I would never be like, look, let me peruse this, and I'm just going to drink the A1 steak sauce. However, in a pinch, well.
The thing that got me was that there were guys while we were deployed where like we had, because sometimes even on the big bases we'd run out of water because the water had to be trucked in, and so when that happened, you couldn't shower except like with a water bottle, and baby wipes. But most of the time, in the summer, that was more common, both because of water usage and also because of like attacks. But most of the time, it wasn't a problem. But some of these guys who were like also infantry, but they were in FOB jobs, would be like, "Oh, I'm being tough by not showering for 5 days." And she's like, "Why? You don't need to do that." I guarantee you, if the guys on like these insane OPs in the middle of nowhere, were like, if they have a shower, it's literally a water blivet like on some pallets, raised above their heads with like a little fucking hole poked in it, and they just stand under and get pissed on. If those guys could be taking hot showers twice a day, they'd be doing it. They'd absolutely be doing it. Like, why are you not showering once a day? Like
infantry, man. I don't understand your guys' mindset.
It's the kind of guys who'd be like, "Oh no, I'm staying in Ranger focus by reusing my socks," and it's like, that's gross. You don't have to. We can do laundry.
We have a guy for that. Nate, speaking of troop health, I did a bonus episode that I'm sure we'll talk about at the end, but it's about how like the Army has realized that like all the PT that they made us do is bad for us. And because think about all the dumb shit. Like when did you join? You joined in like the surge years, right? Or no, 07?
I started ROTC in 03. I commissioned in 07. So I started active duty, and I was doing Army stuff in some regard and from 03 on. And then in 07, I went active.
Yeah. So I'm of that time as well. And like, it's nice to see that the Army is kind of turning things around, but also at the same time, it's just like, we were telling you guys this a long time ago, like the dumbest fucking, exercises that anybody has ever come up with, like mule kicks. Mule kicks was my big thing. It was the first time. So if you've never done a mule kick, you put your hands behind your head. You're standing there. You put your hands behind your heads, and you just have to jump and kick yourself in the butt with the back of your feet. And this exercise does absolutely nothing for you other than make you incredibly tired and possibly fall down and shatter a kneecap. Which happened on occasion. It was a great form of punishment that we had. The do this until you break yourself completely exercise. What did you guys have? Because you were a ranger, so I bet you guys had a bunch of dumb shit that you had to do.
In Ranger School, it would be less a specific exercise. I mean, I do remember one guy just being a dick and making us do overhead arm claps for like an hour.
Ugh.
But in Ranger School, it was more I mean, they'd smoke you, make you do push-ups, but what they really like to do was torment you with your gear. So if you're out in the field, everyone has to hold their rucksack over their head while they're, like if someone is doing something wrong or someone's being punished or they're mad at your class, it's like, get your fucking rucksacks up. And they would just stand there and harass you and scream at you while you were holding your rucksacks over your head, which I mean, those rucksacks were anywhere from, 45 to 90 pounds, depending on what kit you had that day. So that sucked really bad. When we were back in Derby, the first phase, they had a cage room where we had all of our sea bags. So we had your rucksack, and then you had 2 duffel bags. I should think maybe sea bag is the wrong term now, because basically I cannot remember if it's sea bag like SEA, like it's a bag you carry to sea, or if it's A, B, and C, because we would have an A bag packing list, a B bag packing list, and a C bag packing list for like long deployment stuff, where it was like literally 3 duffel bags. But what I'm saying here is that your excess kit that you had to have, but you couldn't keep on your person at all times, you had your name on it with your roster number and your name and stuff on like white engineer tape on the bag. And those bags were all stored in a cage room. And so sometimes to fuck with us, what they would do is they'd make us all come in the cage room. You have 5 minutes, everyone get out, your entrenching tool cover or something like that. Or like everyone get out like your winter canteen cover, or like everyone get out, I can't even fucking remember, like aviator goggles. And that wouldn't be shit you'd had on you. And so like everyone's rush in there. The whole class is to rush in there and grab bags and go and dump shit everywhere. And they're like, all right, now bags, pack them up. Everybody back in 5 minutes. And if you didn't get in, then they smoke you. And it's like flutter kicks and overhead arm claps and push-ups and iron mics and shit like that.
What was the iron mic?
Fucking God. Iron mic is basically you go down to a squat and then you jump and switch legs back down to a squat. Like a lunge rather. So lunge. So like you like go down, lunge one leg, one leg bend at the knee, one leg stretched out, and then jump and switch legs and lunge and just back and forth like that.
Oh, holy shit.
Those suck. Or mountain climbers, if you're familiar with those, where you're in like the push-up resting position. So you're arched your back and your hands on the ground, your feet on the ground. And then basically you bring your knee to like your hand. Basically I can't remember if it's opposite knee or the same knee, but like basically you're lunging your leg up to your hands and back, and just like it's like you're running on the ground, like you know what I mean, like you're crawling like a freak little kid, but you're doing that in a fixed position.
Yeah, it's a bear crawl kind of thing, except you're staying in one place and just making a bunch of fucked up moves with your feet. I remember those. I don't think I ever had to do iron mics. Thankfully, we did a lot of buddy assisted PT as well. Like when you had to put your legs on somebody's back and then do push-ups that way. I was never really knew why the fuck anybody, because I never did that ever again outside of basic training. But then again, I also went to Cold War basic training. I didn't go to this new, like, we do war in cities and not war against Russians and tanks anymore kind of thing. So maybe hopefully it's a little bit better than it used to be.
It was weird to me because when I was in Korea, they had adopted PRT, and I understood the desire to do it, but also it was really strange because PRT struck me as another instance of one size fits all, that you couldn't really deviate from whatever the drill was. And so I just remember a lot of lying around on the concrete doing weird stretch things and just like being very, very cold, because in Korea, they insisted we had to do PT outdoors and we had to do PRT. And you weren't allowed to do individual PT unless you were 05 or above.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were insane.
Well, you mean individual PT outside of the PT? Like after work, you go to the gym or whatever,
no,
right?
You can do after work, you could. But during PT hours, you had to do formation PT unless you were, I think you either had to be a colonel or a lieutenant colonel.
Gross.
Now, of course, no one actually enforced this on like brigade staff officers. They were all in the gym. But all the peons in the battalions had to be out doing basically what looks like... basically looks like fucking doing sideways cartwheels on concrete in January. Yeah. Like, and so, yeah, it was stupid. So stuff like that seemed like a one size fits all thing. But I think my biggest complaint when I think about Army PT was 2 things. Number one, I wasn't a sports medicine major, or the furthest thing from it, but I knew people who were, and there was such little attention paid to like a proper warm up and cool down.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in Alaska, in Korea, you go out and it's like, extend to the left, march, and then stretch cold with no warm up, and then work out and do like the most perfunctory of cool down and then go inside. And they wonder why people's stuff seizes up. And it's like, I remember fighting with my platoon sergeant because he was insistent on doing it this way. And I was like, could we please just at least let's do, like, I promise you, like, we can do formation stretching. We can do extend to the left, march, as much as you want. Can we just run a half mile down to like the place where we do pre-jump, like where they have the mock airplane doors and stuff. Like, let's just run a half mile first. Get everyone out, run, warm up, and then stretch after you're warmed up. And I was like, I was doing this shit in fucking high school for like cross country. Like, certainly in college, people I knew who were like kinesiology and sports medicine people, like they were appalled at some of the stuff that we did, like for the way we did PT in the Army. And I was taken aback by that. Like, yeah, no real attention being paid to this stuff. And then it's like, you know what? When you're 19, you'll probably get away with it. Like, as I know now, I'm 37. If I don't stretch at least a little bit, especially after stuff like running or calisthenics, I will be a mess the next day. And I just wish that they had paid more attention to that. And point number 2 is the Army had this bipolar, if you will, approach to stuff like recovery when people were hurt. You were on profile and you basically were like, you were not allowed to do anything besides profile PT. And then the day you come off profile, it's like, all right, 12-mile road march immediately. And they wonder why people, stay hurt and they wind up, getting disabled from it.
Or re-injured. Yeah, there was that was the only time that you could ever like get any kind of shamming on PT was the if you had a profile, but it's like specifically this thing, like, okay, you can't do push-ups. I can literally make you do everything else though, because it's not on here. And it always felt like, in the reserves, like you got away with it because, we're reservists. We do this 1 weekend a month, but like anytime I was on active duty and around active duty people and doing active duty PT for whatever reason, it always seemed like if somebody was on profile, like whoever was leading PT hated that person so much. Like, you can't do the exercises that I'm telling you to do, so I'm going to just, be a real dick about doing all these other ways, which, again, is not great for somebody who has a profile for some reason or whatsoever. Like, just because their profile says don't do push-ups, probably shouldn't be doing overhead arm claps for the next, 30 minutes or so. That's probably going to fuck somebody up. But, that's the Army. It's for us, it's always been, take a Motrin and drink some water and change your socks and push on.
Take a knee, drink water, have Motrin. I remember joking about that we were like, we saw the Ranger School aid station one time at I think I can't remember what it's called. Basically, not Camp Darby, whatever the camp is at Fort Benning, where you do your basic in processing at Ranger School, and you do the PT test, the road march, the obstacle course. Not the Darby Queen, but the other obstacle course and like the mud pit and stuff. And the aid station's right down there on the road. And I just remember my buddy being like, yeah, they just have wall lockers full of knee pads and canteens and cases of Motrin. Because it's just like, yep, take a knee, drink water, take Motrin. That's it. And it's like, that shit will get you, man. Also, Ranger School, what I remember loving this so much, and by loving, I mean hating it, was they were so insistent on the no food discipline stuff, like we are only allowed to eat when we tell you, that they wouldn't even go so far as to allow me to consume a single saltine cracker when receiving large amounts of ibuprofen for my fucked up ankle. So like, imagine taking 2 800 milligram ibuprofens on an empty stomach twice a day for weeks.
You can't.
And what that does to your stomach.
You can't get. Like, I've never seen anywhere where I can get 800 milligram Motrins outside of the Army.
Oh, those fucking horse pills, man. They're so huge. Yeah, I don't get it. But yeah, it's like they look like novelty oversized vitamins. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I have ibuprofen in my medicine cabinet, and they're 200 milligram capsules, and I take like 1 or 2 when I need them. The whole, like, I'm wondering if like all the Motrin that the Army made me take is why I have such horrible acid reflux. Fucking 20 years later. But yeah, that the side effects just on, for ibuprofen side effects, headaches, nervousness, ringing in the ears, vomiting, heartburn, diarrhea, and constipation. So you can roll the dice and see what your bathroom experience is going to be like. Yeah, they just gave that shit out like it was candy. And I'm not going to say
that's the joke. Have you ever heard the expression they call them Ranger candy? Those 800 milligram pills. Yeah, man. Like, sucked.
That thing's look. I've had to take that. I've had to take mefloquine, which apparently fucks you up. I've taken Cipro, which, if you're not careful, can make all of your joints fall apart. The army just really likes to jam a pill down your throat, and but like only specific pills. There's like 5 pills that the army will hand out with no second thought. But the rest of it is just like, oh, we have everything else is very controlled. But when it comes to pain medication, just like, no, take an ibuprofen, and you know, try to be safe on it. And for you, it's like, okay, cool, I'm going back to Ranger school. There's literally no way to do this.
That, for example, we didn't take mefloquine because I think by that point, by the time that I deployed to Afghanistan, they had realized that there was some drama with mefloquine. But they made us take doxycycline, and that was a once a day pill.
Yeah.
And I remember they didn't do a very good job of explaining, at least to my recollection, sort of like best practices for doxycycline. And one of them was definitely don't take it on an empty stomach because it will fucking make you sick. But the other one is it makes you sensitive to sunburn.
Ooh.
And it's very funny to me because I'm like, can you imagine? I'm already so white, I'm basically transparent. Can you imagine me in Afghanistan on a drug that makes me more sensitive to sunburn? Like, my nose looked like you'd photoshopped it red. Genuinely, like after long missions and stuff. It was that bad. Like, I hope that I do not lose my nose someday from melanoma. You know, like, it's wild to me.
Yeah, the mefloquine was once a week, and it always gave me just the most fucked dreams I've ever had.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories of weird mefloquine dreams from people that, like, apparently it's real bad.
The only dream that I remember that has stuck with me from Afghanistan, and because at the time we were watching bootlegged DVDs of The Sopranos. Yeah, my Sopranos watching goes back to Afghanistan. Though I never actually finished the series because only like 2 seasons or 3 seasons were out at that time.
Hey, Tone, we're stuck in like a fucking forever war here. Right? It's like there's guys over the border and we're paying them money to fucking fight us, but we're also paying guys to fight them. What the fuck?
Yeah. So one of my dreams was I was on a beach with Tony Soprano, and we were being chased by a giant crab that was shooting lightning bolts out of its claws.
That's crazy. I don't really have vivid dreams like that. Like,
I don't either. It was mefloquine Mondays. It's just like take your mefloquine and go to bed, and let's see how this goes. And it was always like, even if I didn't remember, I was always tired the next day because I was always just like, it was a sleep where I was constantly moving because my dreams were just so fucked up at the time.
This is one of those things where, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. I think there's definitely like a wait and see, or I'm sure it'll be fine attitude towards just about everything that you were exposed to in the military. I just recently finished editing the bonus episode for Lions Led by Donkeys talking about Agent Orange and just the sheer volume of unhelpful information or lack of information provided to people about like the safe handling of dioxin. And how incredibly dangerous it was, and that none of the guys handling it or fueling it up knew. And, you know, that like even a tiny bit could be like lifelong toxic. And I think about this with some of the stuff with us. Yeah, like mefloquine. I've talked about them using Adabrin in World War II and how that causes psychosis in some people. You know, the anthrax inoculation that some people have really strong reactions to. You know, and then also like PT. PT is a great example. You know, I'll put it this way. I don't like CrossFit stuff in terms of the culture. And I think the way that when CrossFit stuff is done, like the classes that can be really bad in terms of just like giving people repetitive stress injuries. I understand why some people like it, but it's not for me. Fine. I will say training stuff like high intensity training and also Olympic lifting is great. And I really like that stuff. And I was happy to see some of that stuff get introduced in the Army. And I thought sort of like CrossFit adjacent high intensity training things like, you know, repetitive sets and things like that of stuff like push-ups, pull-ups, dips, flutter kicks, like jogs around, like doing high intensity training that way. I felt that stuff was pretty good. And I felt like it did a really good job of helping my soldiers stay in shape and have us not just do the same thing over and over again. So I was happy to see, like at Fort Bragg, for example, they'd built this incredible fitness center that had, you know, weight rooms, but also like a sort of weight field, if you will, that had like sort of like AstroTurf kind of big open area. and they had a ton of, weight racks and squat racks and free weights and things like bumper plates and stuff like that. So it was cool seeing the Army like be at least acceptable with that, if you want to call it that.
They're trying,
but
they're
trying. But what I noticed from that was that none of the units, like the regular Army units at Bragg, got to use that stuff the way it was intended. Like if they did, it was basically like they got sent into the weight room and sort of had to do the equivalent of formation PT kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like there wasn't any choice involved. And I feel like some of this stuff, you're going to hit your head against the wall of there isn't a one size fits all solution for people for fitness, for example. You know what I mean? Like it's just not going to work.
It kind of, and I'd mentioned this on the episode I did with Haley, but at a certain point, it does feel like the military is realizing like, oh, we can't just give everybody medium regular size uniforms and call it good. Like we have to, like, they actually made uniforms that are tailored for a woman, not just, so they don't look like they're wearing a potato sack like, the rest of us do. So it does seem like for a minute, it does seem like they're trying. And for a lot of that, I think it's because they're realizing that they're like, everybody's quitting their jobs right now, and the Army needs to be very careful, because if they're not, people are going to start quitting the Army too, because they're going to also realize, like, I don't have to get yelled at as a job. I can go get a job somewhere else where they don't scream at me and make me do push-ups. Or go out into the field for 3 weeks where I don't see my family or whatever. Like the Army, it feels like they're trying to do that. And I hope, for their sake, it's not a too little too late kind of thing. But I also feel like, as you said, the your normal everyday soldiers aren't going to get access to this. Your normal infantry line unit, your paratroopers and stuff like that, they will continue to work out at the fucked up gyms because that's all that they have where they're at. Maybe they get to come into these fancy new gyms. When I was on Carson, I saw fancy gyms there, but I also saw plenty of people out doing PRT out in the fucking wet ass grass too. So. Like I don't know what the answer is in these situations, but I can tell you that the Army certainly doesn't have it. And
I was also going to say that like there was an interesting point in that Task and Purpose article that you shared, that the guy, the I believe was the colonel, a full colonel. I can't remember if he was like the 82nd. He was in a role in the 82nd, or if it was the brigade commander or not of that second brigade, but. He was like, yeah, our sergeant's major, like they're hurting. Their bodies are fucking destroyed from this shit. And there was a kind of like I'll call it a snap moment of recognition, because like most command sergeants major in line units are like in and around between say 18 and 25 years in. Now I didn't enlist straight out of high school, but if I had, that's how long I'd have been in by now. So like these guys who were broken the fuck off, these are dudes more or less my age, your age, maybe a little older.
Yeah.
And just like, 18 to 25 years of this shit has massively damaged them, because the Army, like if you do stuff to stand as you get older, the level of stupidity has much harsher consequences. I mean, I can't tell you how much of a revelation it was in Special Forces selection that one of the guys in my team who was, had been a recruiter for a long time. And at that time, like recruiting was so slow because of sequestration that he just had tons of free time to work out. He had just sneaked a tennis ball in, and using a tennis ball for like trigger point massage was so unbelievable. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like he basically taught us all how to do trigger point massage with a broomstick and with a tennis ball. And God, that was a lifesaver, because it's just the sheer amount of rucking we were doing in selection. And like, I just remember thinking like, man, obviously the Army could make this stupid. They could do something stupid. But just like basic sports medicine stuff like that would be incredible. And if they do
cheap,
it, great.
It's cheap stuff. Like that's the big. This is inexpensive.
A rubber lacrosse ball is not going to cost you that much money, And like that's the thing that for years I had back pain from a bunch of stuff. I think I can kind of trace the source to it, to a combination of being a paratrooper, bad landings, and then in part of the Q course, doing really hard PT in the morning and then sitting 6 to 7 hours a day in a classroom studying language in like awkward chairs. My back just like locked up. And for years I couldn't figure it out. I tried a bunch of stuff. I even did physical therapy at the VA when I got out. And what made the biggest difference was a suggestion from Cynthia that she was just like, start with, because I tried lacrosse balls before, but I thought I was like hurting myself. I didn't know what I was doing. And she basically said like, for every bit of pressure you try on your lower back, also do an equal amount on your glutes And, if you can't move it back and forth, if it's too painful, then just activate it and count to 30 seconds and then move to another position and just do that. And like stop if it's really painful, if it's like sensitive to the touch, but just, whatever you can do, try to do, 30 seconds in each position. And then once you've done that and you can do that for a while, like over the course of days, weeks, try rolling it back and forth and, absolutely hit your lower back and what would be like your, like sacroiliac joint, but also hit your glutes and all around your, upper thigh, glute, et cetera, with the ball. And after a couple of weeks of doing that, it made such a difference. And in September, I ran 10K, my best 10K since I got out of the Army. Wasn't particularly fucked up over it afterwards. Like I wasn't hurt too bad, but like I could not have done that. Basically, one of the reasons I left the SF course was my back was fucking killing me. And it's crazy to me how much, like, if I had known, I'm not saying go to some like woo shit, but just basic sports medicine stuff. Cause like trigger point stuff, that's not like, a multi-level marketing scheme. Like there are doctors who do this. There are, sports physical therapists who do this. Like people who work with professional athletes do this. Like it's well known. And it's crazy to me. Like if I had just known that, I'm glad I got out of SF and the Army, don't get me wrong, but a huge driver of that was the pain I was in. And like, quite frankly, it's crazy to me that could have been fixed because at the time people were like, oh no, here's some Valium. Maybe it'll loosen you up. Now Valium feels great, but it did not loosen up my insanely locked up back.
That's not a thing. That's not how that works.
I got prescribed. They gave me 5 days worth of it to see if it helped. I'm like, those were 5 days of great sleep, but it did not help at all.
Yeah, that reminds me. I need to get a foam roller for the house, just because I walk the dog every day, like at least a mile every day, taking her out to go pee and poop. But I do sit in an office chair now. Yeah. I need to, and when I do get to go run, it's like I have to force myself because I'm just like, I feel fine, but I have to sit down and do my back stretches because if I don't, a half mile in, my lower back seizes up, and then I have to walk the rest of the way. Yeah. So it's about time. Thankfully, we live in an era where we can actually know about some of these things, and I can get myself a foam roller and roll around in here and do my fucking yoga and everything like the little uwu person I am now.
Yeah, and 100 years from now, people are going to listen to like the, soul extant copies of this podcast that someone put on a mini disc for some reason. And they're like, God, what primitive medicine. They weren't grinding up geodes and sniffing them like lines of cocaine to heal their brain demons. God, these people didn't know anything.
So you think in 100 years, medicine's going to be completely gone, and we're all just sniffing rose quartzes?
No, I'm just thinking that like there's going to be something that's going to seem like a friend of mine who's
the crystal people were actually right.
He lives in Hawaii and he's a scientist and he hates the crystal people. But one thing that he did say about like the sort of these realms is that if you were to talk to someone 200 years ago and describe the phenomenon of infrared and like infrared heat signatures, and the way that infrared works, it would sound like magic. But obviously, we developed the ability to detect it. And, now it's a thing that we can employ. So I'm hoping that, in 100 years, medicine will have advanced that certain things that, befuddle us or hinder us, they'll just be like, oh yeah, you can, we can do this, either whether it's drugs or, physical intervention or like some sort of Tai Chi thing where they just poke you in the right spot and it completely heals, like whatever, but that will have figured that stuff out. And so stuff like, you wouldn't have somebody my age being like, my fucking back seizes up.
Yeah. Look, the cure for cancer is great, and we definitely should, find cure for cancer, but also we should cure me having to groan when I get out of the bed when I ran the day before,
100%.
When I haven't been running on a regular basis. I just need anything that I can take to make my life less painful and more easy is just thumbs up for me, whatever it is. I don't give a shit.
100%.
Vaccine me against all
vaccine me against old age, please do it.
Oh, that's the Peter Thiel thing. We just got to start injecting baby blood into ourselves.
Just harvesting the blood of the young. Francis, talk about this bonus that you did.
Yeah, so my wife, one of the members of her family did a genealogical deep dive and found out that my wife has ancestors that go back to the 1600s in America as fur traders, beaver fur traders. And just looking it up and everything, I discovered a thing called the Beaver Wars, which was a long drawn out conflict of many small battles of between French and Dutch and English and various Native American tribes over control of areas populated with beavers, so that they could kill them and sell them to British people to turn them into hats. This hat phenomenon nearly made the beavers go extinct over 90 plus years. So I broke down some of the important people, the important roles. I talked about some Jesuits getting baptized with boiling water, as you do when you're a missionary and you're looking for canonization. I was raised Catholic, so I had to bring the Jesuits into it as well. So there's a lot going on in this episode, and I hope that you enjoy it. We get a idea from the white people who are there for specific purposes, which is one, colonization, and two, money. But the Native Americans, they didn't necessarily at this time go to war for the exact same reason. So a lot of the stuff that's talked about with the Beaver Wars is the Iroquois wanting to expand their hunting grounds so they could do more trading. And it isn't necessarily that. Maybe a little bit of it is that, but also during this time is what's known as Iroquois Mourning Wars. Mourning spelled Mourning. So a lot of times battles and wars were fought by natives at this time, not necessarily to say, fuck you, I'm going to take your stuff, or I hate you. And not for the European reasons, which is fuck you. Your flag looks different. Your shade is slightly darker or lighter than me. So I'm just going to, kill everybody and destroy everything and salt the earth and make it so that nobody else can be there anymore. A lot of times the natives would kidnap and just be like, you're us now. You're no longer whatever tribe that is.
Yeah. The Europeans also did that as well. I mean, tactical hostage taking has been a thing for a very long time.
It's not hostage taking necessarily, though. Like hostage taking, maybe in the form of like we'll let you go one day, or in the form of a war. But no, it's just like we have lost too many people to war, to famine, to smallpox or whatever. Our numbers are low. You are now Iroquois. You will learn our language, and you will be Iroquois now. Or you will be Huron, or you will be whoever you are being captured by. It was mostly the Iroquois who were doing that. Who would?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's a pretty common thing for European tribal groups that did the same thing, especially in like the North and South Caucasus. That was pretty normal all the way up until pre-Roman times.
Yeah, it's a form, I guess, of like ethnic cleansing, we can call it, but like not really in the way that we think about it now. It's more of we need more people. You are us now. You're going to be on our side now.
Yeah, it's less of an elimination and more of an absorption. Like an easy that like in ancient Armenia, there was several different tribes that made up like the Hyasa Zazi people, and then they eventually ended up like marrying into the Arab population that was in the area, which then slowly vanishes from written history. It's not because they were all killed; it's because they married into these groups and were absorbed.
Yeah, they were fucked out of existence.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, and there's a lot of the French did a lot of intermarrying with the natives as well, and that was encouraged with the French. So we're going to talk about the French, the Dutch, and the English.
The French had a very weird version of colonialism in the era, which is why like you see like the French and Indian War and things like that, where like the native population generally took the side of the French.
There's a reason why why there's a lot more French words than you'd be expecting in the New World. Like, there's an entire province that speaks French in, Canada. And Montreal is one of the places of the Beaver Wars back when Montreal was, just a fort that they built out of some logs in a long weekend, basically.
Yeah, that's how Detroit started as well. Or Detroit, when it was pronounced correctly.
Exactly. I mean, all up and down the Mississippi River is a lot of French influence. St. Louis, obviously, and New Orleans as well. So there's a lot of French and there's a lot of Catholicism all up and down the Mississippi River, and that is because the French love to send out missionaries. So the first actual Jesuit missionaries that went to the New World were sent out by this guy named Claudio Acquaviva. Claudio was a Spaniard, but because he was a Catholic, because he was part of the church, and because he was pretty high up in both Spanish politics and Catholic politics, he got to make some says and some stuff. So he sent 2 missionaries in the very, very early years of the 1600s who went. They set up a mission and were promptly killed, not by natives though, but by English. So that, as you do.
Yeah, that tends to happen.
Claudio spent a lot of his time, he did that once, and he's like, "Fuck it, I don't care about the New World," because he was more pushing on his stuff that was going out in he did a lot in China and Japan. So he was more focused east than west. I like to bring up Claudio Acquaviva because a fun fact about him is he is implicated in the poisoning of at least 6 popes. With the same cup, with literally the same poison cup. So
he had to do that on a flex, right? A normal assassin's I have to at least get a different cup. I have to go back and switch out my plastic cups.
Well, I mean, it's not like now where you can just be like, oh, I can look up this senator's voting record and see how they voted 10 years ago. You're not going to look at it Claudio, he's killed 4 other popes with this cup. Yeah,
but 4 popes into it sounds Claudio's around a lot of dead popes.
Popes die. Look, man, this is a time when everybody just fucking dies. All right, people just die in the 1600s. It's just it's one thing or another. If you poison somebody in the 1600s, they don't have autopsies, they're not running medical scams, and they're let's draw some blood and see what the tox screen says. It's he died. Why? Too much blood?
Ghost in his teeth. But still, wow, the office of the papacy is that's 3 popes down. All of them are connected to this cup somehow. Anyway, we should probably allow Claudio to keep supplying us wine, right? We don't feel like charging anymore.
Just really I really think that if I was sent back in time, if I could learn the language and not be immediately killed as a witch, I could advance us quite a bit. Just because
you're going down as a witch immediately.
Probably. Just my clothes alone. All right, so and Acquaviva did that because he was more loyal to Philip II than he was the papacy. So when there was a pope that would tell Philip II to do something that he didn't want to do, he'd just be like, "Go kill that pope for me, would you?" And he would.
Yeah, who needs loyalty when you can kill a half dozen popes?
Exactly. All right, so the first real French colony was started by a man named Samuel Champlain. Champlain is great because he understood that living in the New World fucking sucked ass because there was nothing to do other than not die. That was what you did. You not died as hard as you could in the New World because it's cold. There's you don't have the food storing kind of capabilities that you might have had back in France. There's not a baguettery down the street from you here. So he created.
You want to go shit blood and stare at that tree? Hell yeah, I do.
Exactly. So he created the first colonies, but he also created something called the Order of Good Cheer, which was a way to just get everybody from various colonies and missions to come together every once in a while and party, just hang out. Let's all hang out because it sucks to live here in this new world where we have been for 10 years. Of course, the natives are fine because they live there forever and they don't give a shit. So
yeah, they have adapted to their environment. The Frenchmen are just my eyes are bleeding now. I guess I shouldn't eat that mushroom.
Yeah. So Champlain was, as many of the French who came over, a very good Catholic man, and also helped kind of bring over some of the other missionaries. Now, Joe, does the name Cardinal Richelieu mean anything to you?
It does.
All right.
I'm curious where this is going, however. Nothing good.
See, okay, so Cardinal Richelieu was, it's hard to say whether a person is good or bad in the 1600s at this point, because Cardinal Richelieu was
he became a cardinal, so.
I mean, and to be fair, anybody involved in the church in the 1600s was probably gross and corrupt in some way. I'm not here to say that Cardinal Richelieu, who is the main bad guy in all of the Three Musketeers books, we're not here to say that Cardinal Richelieu was a great man. He was a very good warrior, very good statesman, and was really good at doing colonialism. Everybody, as always, you can follow me at Army Strang, follow Nate in These Deserts, and follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. We've got new stuff in the store. We've got these cool new challenge coins that have bottle openers on them. Those are in there. They've got designs for us and Lions Led by Donkeys. The dual-headed, you can take it and flip it as a coin and crack your beers open with it. You can do all kinds of things with it. So we've got those. Check those out. And if that sounded great to you, you can follow us. You can get us on patreon.com/hellofaWayToDie. That's at the $3 level. Always new content every week for you. So check that out if you like it. And for everybody, thank you so much. Nate, we'll talk to you next week.
Take care.